Hello friends, today we'll be talking about a sextile between Sun and Taurus and Jupiter in the sign of Cancer at 20 degrees. This aspect will perfect on May 10th and it will be in effect for about 5 days. And I want to put this transit into some sort of a context. If you think about it, for over a month now, Jupiter in Cancer has been under a lot of pressure. And that's from all the squares that it was receiving from the sign of Aries. We had the Sun square it, Venus, Mars, Mercury. So all of this was saying there was immense amount of confrontation between our inner sense of being and the actions that we have to perform in the world. Like Aries wanted us to move forward. And Jupiter, on the other hand, was keep telling us to take care of our emotional truth, to be mindful of our inner life, to pay attention to what we were feeling, not just what we were doing. And because of this push and pull, so many of us felt so much exhaustion physically and psychologically. We felt like we had to continuously act, even though we might have felt very overwhelmed. Like we wanted to move forward, but there was a sense of like, I'm not stabilized. We were even forced to make decisions while feeling very disconnected from the core of us. It was as if we had to keep the momentum going, while our inner self just needed to sit, relax, and just have a moment of self-reflection. And this is why this sextile between Sun and Jupiter is so important right now. So it's saying something that we're going to have some support, a way to find a method that we can stabilize our inner self and our outer worlds. This transit is going to show us what we need to rebuild a sense of continuity, so this inner self and the outer worlds can interact in a seamless way. And before getting into the depth of this video, I'll be covering the upcoming transits for May, but the next video, it's actually a special video, a topic that I've been working on for a while. I'm going to look at the transit of Saturn into the nakshatra of Revati, which starts on May 15th, and it's pretty much going to be in effect until Saturn leaves the sign of Aries. It's going to go into another nakshatra towards the end of this sign from a tropical perspective, but it's going to go into this nakshatra and stay there for a long time. And we got to understand what this planet of negation and naysaying is going to mean in a nakshatra that's so much about nurturance and finding our way. So it'll be good to go through it just to know the kind of themes that we'll be grappling with. And if you want to catch these upcoming videos, please do remember to subscribe, press that notification bell so YouTube notifies you when the videos are out. And now let's go through the layers of the symbols for this video, because I want you guys to be able to do the synthesis on your own to understand what these different placements mean and what it means to blend them. And let's start with Sun and the sign of Taurus. The Sun does represent the self and the center of being. And now it's in a sign that's bringing it into relation to the conditions we need in this life to maintain this self. And I want you guys to remember, the Sun also represents our consciousness, our self-concept, and it has a lot to do with health and vitality. It's also that principle within us that seeks to have a coherence. Like you have the same self-concept since day one. You have just grown and matured and learned other things, but there's this sense of self that has its continuity. This is the Sun within you. And when we understand this center of the self, that's when we feel like we have stability. Life can be in absolute flux, but you know who you are in the midst of that storm. And because of that, you always know what your sense of direction in this life is. And it's that gives you the sense of continuity about your life story, you as the person, as a character in the story who's experiencing the totality of it. And when the Sun comes into the sign of Taurus, the Sun symbolism gets attached to this concept of preservation. But I don't mean preservation in terms of scarcity, we're trying to preserve something or there's fear attached to it. But preservation in a sense that how do I create a life that can actually sustain me over time? It's about preserving, sustaining. And if you think about it, this is an earth sign, Taurus. And you know, this planet of ours is a gem when you think about the diversity and the abundance that's on this planet compared to the other planets. There's a sense of richness on this planet. And I want you to remember with the sign of Taurus, because it's an earth sign, and because of this abundance, it's related to this concept that's called Artha, which is a goal of life. And this goal of life is about building and preserving the material life. And I'm not just talking about money with Artha. I'm talking about total infrastructure that we need to support our existence. as this soul that also has a material manifestation. So it can include such things as food, shelter, all kinds of resources, our health, our body, and also the things that give us a sense of stability and security in this life. This is what Artha is about. So it's the conditions that permit us to have a sense of continuity, to be able to sustain and to preserve ourselves. And all the earth signs understand something that's very essential for life, which is that you cannot continue through this life without support. And Taurus, from all the earth signs, understands this best because it's a fixed sign. Like mutable earth can adapt. That's its forte. Cardinal earth, like Cap, initiates a new structure and a new way of building something. But fixed earth has a tendency to preserve and to grow and to cultivate that which is. So it comes to be about endurance, reliability, patience, and consistency. Like the sign of Taurus wants to create conditions that can become so steady that you can actually root yourself in life. And this is one of the reasons this sign has such a close connection to this concept of fertility. And fertility doesn't just mean reproduction, but is the kind of reproduction that permits abundance, opulence, health, and beauty. So it's talking about, yes, creativity, but also sustaining something so that it can come to a point that it can create. So it's our ability to keep on growing, because this environment is so rich. It has so much abundance in it that it can nourish us. And we have to consider that this sign is of the feminine principle. So it's very receptive. And that means it doesn't force growth. It's about cultivation, growth through nourishment, attendance, care, patience, and again, for the purpose of preservation. So this is a deeply life-supporting sign. It's a sign where life can settle, root itself, and then keep on flourishing. And I want you to think about this as a side note for a second. This is one of the reasons why the moon's exalted here, one of the most fluctuating up and down planets. And yet, when it comes to Taurus, it's so stable. It's so abundant that it can meet all the needs of the moon and even stabilize this fluctuating planet. Well, we call the moon planet, the satellite of Earth. And these facets of the sign, they actually have a lot of resonance to the sun, because the sun is life generating, life producing, life sustaining. It's also about health. And as I was saying, the sun has a lot to do with our sense of continuity. So when the sun comes here, some of the prominent questions become about, how do I strengthen my life? What stabilizes me? What gives me a sense of vitality? And by knowing that, then we also know what it is that makes us weak in this life, because it's the absence of those things. So the sun here in the sign of Taurus wants to know how to create more stability and greater sense of continuity so things can be supported and preserved. And when we get sun in the sign of Taurus, one of the most prominent themes is related to health. Like the sun itself represents the life force, and Taurus is the material conditions that support life's vitality. So sun in Taurus has this profound understanding between the self and the environments that it puts itself into. Like sun in Taurus understands that me, the I of me, is not separate from the material conditions that I live in. Like sun in Taurus knows that there are environmental stressors, and if I put myself in that kind of environment, I'm going to absorb that stress, especially with that receptivity that's in this sign. It knows that its nervous system will absorb the instability of its environments. And since the sun has to do with seeing knowledge, we can be very aware of different kinds of places that drain us and weaken us. And right now, there's an overemphasis on how do I keep myself healthy and keep my vitality up. Like this sun in Taurus right now is concerned with a fundamental existential question, which is, I really want to stay healthy, stable, and coherent right now. And because of this, one of the questions that's coming to the forefront of our mind is, what do I need to be able to sustain myself? How do I match who I am and what I've become to the things that I need externally in my environment to support me? We're getting a greater sense of consciousness about this at this time. And I want you guys to keep this in mind right now. And I'm going to quickly go over Jupiter's significations. but I'm going to spend a little less time on Jupiter in the sign of Cancer because in the past year, there are a number of videos now that I've talked about this from many different angles, looking at different symbols and significations. And there's a playlist now on YouTube called Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. If you guys are interested, you can go check out those videos. But Jupiter in Cancer, this Jupiter has been reorganizing our inner self. Like Sun right now is concerned with our environment. This Jupiter is concerned with our inner being. And for the past year, Jupiter has been expanding our inner realm. And I don't mean just expanding our emotions, like we have more emotions. Rather, it's been expanding our inner container. And if you think about it, it's this inner container that holds all of our experiences together. It holds our memories, our emotional associations, and all the psychological imprints that are left on us throughout a lifetime. So Jupiter has been expanding the interiority of the self so that we understand the reality that we have lived and the one that we're finding ourselves in right now, something that we can take in and personalize it. So there's room for it. And if Taurus is talking about the continuity of us in the environment, in the material world, Cancer is talking about the continuity of the inner self, such as our narrative, for example, our life story. And with Jupiter here, we've gotten tremendous amount of awareness of our stories, of our inner happenings for the past year. Like, this is one of the reasons why we've been thinking about certain things like, why is it that certain experiences still affect me till this day? They've been surfacing up. We've been rethinking them, reorganizing them, especially when Jupiter was retrograde. We've been evaluating the things that create suffering for us because we never suffer externally. We suffer internally. So Jupiter in the sign of Cancer has been about a lot of this, doing a self-inventory and making our inner self more spacious. And Jupiter shows up here once every 12 years, and it does such an important job that goes unnoticed. Because we like to think of ourselves as these rational beings. I can think my way out of my problems. I can change my feelings through my thinking and my actions. But if you think about it, we live in our meanings, in the way that we understand the world. And it's that understanding that's giving shape to our narrative, what we can become, what kind of life philosophy that we have. And they all have emotional associations just embedded and wired into us. So Jupiter coming here is like reorganizing that wiring, making it more optimal. Like Jupiter's been showing us why we have certain desires, and then we have certain desires, but unconsciously we're organizing ourselves around a different emotional reality. There are all of these contradictory, oppositional modes in us. So Jupiter has been showing us these hidden emotional frameworks where they've been shaping our perception, behavior, attachment, security, fear, a sense of belonging. So in other words, Jupiter has been imparting a kind of a wisdom to us that's making us more conscious of our inner happenings. But that's enough about Jupiter. Now let's bring Sun and Jupiter into the sextile dialogue that they're in right now. So this aspects want us to see the alignments or the lack of alignment between our inner self and the life that we've constructed around it externally. And one of the greatest sufferings that we experience in our life is that who I think I am internally doesn't have its equal representation externally in the material world. Like who I am, my external world can't sustain it, can't preserve it, can't grow it. So there's a disconnect that creates suffering. And this can work out in another way too, because a person can understand themselves emotionally, and yet they live in an external environment that's constantly diminishing this emotional self. And that means their external life can't support their inner world. And then there are other people who build an external life that's quite lavish. It's very stable and secure, but internally they feel a sense of disconnection. So what this sextile is doing, it wants to create a sense of integration. It wants our emotional life and our material life to reflect each other, complement each other, be in correspondence. And when we are in these modes of lack and gap and non-correspondence, if you pay attention, we're in survival mode. We're always overcompensating somehow. We're performing, we're in a state of fear, and there's just a mismatch. But this sextile really wants us to see how these two different spheres of life can be supportive to each other. And just because it's a sextile, it doesn't mean that it's just going to be fun times. It's going to go by smoothly. Sometimes sextiles is about actually creating a situation where we get to see something so that we can engage with it and make it better. For instance, it can show us how we've come to normalize some way of living. And yet, when we pay attention to it, every time we engage in that thing in the material world to go get that thing, to do that thing, internally, we're falling apart. When we talk about Taurus, I was explaining it earlier, it's not just about money. It's talking about all kinds of things that support us. It can uphold us. So this sextile can come in to actually show us the types of relationships that we have to things and even to people that in reality drain our sense of vitality. And this is not far-fetched. Like some of the things that some people will do for money, it's draining their life, all of the resources that is of the greatest amount of value just to say, I have this thing. I have this material component of life. So this sextile actually wants to show us the things that regulate or dysregulate our life. This sign wants us to feel very embodied in our experiences. But if we don't have our inner self aligned to this external thing that we're doing, we can't have this embodiment. It's almost like we're externally performing in front of it, trying to one day achieve it and to be it. Like our goals can't put us in a place of self-abandonment. We have to create correspondence between who we are internally and what it is we're seeking externally, because that external facet of the world is supposed to sustain and support who and what we are. And the sun here, with that illuminating factor that it has, it's showing us where we have these kinds of disconnection. And with Jupiter in the sign of Cancer, Jupiter can also reorganize things in accordance to what it is that we externally need. They're working harmoniously. They're brainstorming right now. How do we do this right for this person? Within this person, the sun in us, the Jupiter in us is trying to do this. But at the bottom of it, right now, our external worlds and our higher knowing have to find a way to be moving along together, not against each other, not pushing each other, but how do we become something complementary? I know there's another factor too. When you have a certain set of knowledge and your external worlds, your material life doesn't correspond to it, we also have to change that external world so that one is a reflection of the other. And this is a gift of the sextile too, which is self-knowledge is not complete until it also changes the way that we live. Like a lot of us will say, like, I know myself from an intellectual or even an emotional realm. I know myself. And yet we can find the same people, we ourselves can stay in relationships, lifestyles, environments, follow ambitions that continuously contradicts this inner knowing that we have. I know there's a reason for this because our inner sense of being wants to be a participant and an active agent in the world. So this is why we also need the material world, not only because it sustains us, because it allows us to be an expression of ourselves externally, to interact and to have the world, this interface, the way that we can interface with it. This is why this sign also has a lot to do with creativity. And with Jupiter involved in the mix and our inner worlds, we want this circuit between who I am internally and how I exist in the external material world. And then I want the material world to be a reflection of my inner world. So if you think about it, this sextile right now is an opportunity to embody what it is that we have learned through Jupiter, to embody our knowing and how to become and to be a manifestation of it, and allow our external environment to reflect this knowing and this becoming too. And when there is correspondence, naturally there is that sustaining, preserving factor that comes out of this sign. And when we get rid of the mismatch, we'll also see that we're in the process of cultivating life internally and the environments that we have around us. Because when our material world doesn't reflect our inner worlds, we're either in a fight mode, survival mode, fake it mode. It's just all kinds of modes that's just not productive. You can't grow anything there. But when there's correspondence, there's this natural act of cultivation. The inner world's cultivating the external, the internal, and just this nice circuit. I think of the sextile in terms of, like how some people say fake it till you make it. Don't fake it till you make it. So just be who you are and have the ability to see the environments that you're in that's supportive of this being that you are. From there, from that mere correspondence, life starts to grow internally and externally. And before closing this video and bringing everything together, please do remember to like, share, and subscribe, comment. Let me know how you're moving towards this process of creating correspondence between your inner world and your external environment. What have you learned in terms of what you need materially to feel sustained internally? And when you do feel sustained, how do you cultivate your external environment? And you get into this beautiful flow and circuit of life, not fighting against things to get material things, and not to get material things and in the process to ignore our inner world and what that's about. I'd love to know how you're experiencing this sextile, especially after that brutal square that Jupiter was getting from all those Aries aspects. I'd love to know how you're going through this smoothness now. And if you want to understand this transit or just the blueprint of your life, your birth charts, do email me. My email is in the description box below, and I'll email you back and answer all the questions that you have. I would say go to my website at parisayazdi.com, but my website is all APA coding, and something has gone wrong with the reading section and a couple of other parts, and I have to get my web developer to fix that. I wish I was more versed in coding. That would come very handy right now, but I have no idea. If you guys know how to do it, please do email me and let me know how I can fix this myself too. That would be great. And now to close. And I want to say this. One of the strangest things that I've noticed about being human is how we can remain so separate from ourselves, be at times so inauthentic, for lack of a better word, to what we actually are, and yet continue to function and move through life. Like, we'll continue showing up, we'll continue performing this grand self and all of its plans, and even continue maintaining responsibility. We pay our bill, we pay our rent, we're such an adult, we fulfill the expectations of our partners, for example, and we're not where we're supposed to be. We are not who we're supposed to be. And if we listen closely, I mean, there's a sense of glitchiness all along, because these are the times where we start preaching to other people as to how they should live their life, what they need to be. But underneath that glitchiness, if we listen to it, we'll hear, this is not how you're meant to live your life. And this is what the sun, that listening is in the form of seeing. That's what it's trying to show us right now. And it's not just because we're failing at something. This is not failure per se, but it's showing us how we're putting ourselves in certain facet of the world. It's actually making us go further from ourselves. The sun wants us to be at the center of our being. And if we understand this, then we know how to bring ourselves closer to the environment and the material aspects of the world that can support this center of being. And I think this is the most important part of this sextile because it involves Jupiter, and Jupiter is a planet of knowledge and wisdom. It's trying to help us become more honest about the lives that we're living and the life we actually need to live. Because of its correspondence, it becomes more sustaining and life generating and life promoting. And underneath all of this, the deeper question right now is about, can this life that I'm building truly hold who I am in this moment and who I have become? This is becoming very present based, which is a beautiful thing. Not just chasing who we can be, the potential that we are, what we're becoming. And in the meanwhile, who we actually are in the moment is in complete misalignment to the environment that we're in. So it's like for eternity, there's just going to be a glitch because there's just a mismatch between who the self is and the environment that it actually needs right now. And this brings us to the end of this video. And before leaving, I'd like to leave us with a wish. And I wish that this sextile helps us to reconnect with the conditions that truly sustain our life, both internally and externally. And may what we're now coming to understand about our life become something that we can live and embody, at least during this sextile. I hope we can stand still just long enough to appreciate where we are, who we are, what we've become, and to feel at peace in the material and the external world that we find ourselves in. And that's it for today. Sending you much love. Till next time.